Hey everybody, it's Tanner Mulvihill. I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all my loyal listeners out there, and if you have personally felt that this show has made a difference for you, please take a moment to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever platform you listen to the show on. It makes a big difference and helps spread the word. If you don't want to leave a review, but you wanted to let me know your thoughts, please shoot me a text. I'd love to hear from you. Your feedback is appreciated, and it will help make the show even better. On this episode, I sat down with Debbie Childs, owner of Debbie Childs Real Estate, powered by the Real Estate Group in Virginia Beach. Debbie shared with me the importance of mastering the boring, beautiful basics, why she's never afraid to throw a housewarming party, a reminder to talk to people you don't know, and finally, a real estate story that will have you reaching for the raid the next time you think you see something move while touring a home. And now, my interview with Debbie Childs on the Virginia is Her Realtors podcast. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Virginia's for Realtors, now in our second season. I am pleased to be joined today by Debbie Childs, owner of Debbie Childs Real Estate, powered by the Real Estate Group in Virginia Beach. Debbie, how are you today?
Great. How are you today, Tanner?
I'm doing good. I nailed that one. That wasn't bad at all. Like I said, sometimes this is the hardest part, is just making sure you get the read right. I haven't been on any other podcasts, but I would guess the hosts would have a hard time with Tanner Mulvihill. Good luck to them.
You need to spell that one out phonetically.
That's right. I'll just read it myself for him. We'll make it easier. So I would just like to get a feel for how you got started in the business. What were you doing before you got into this crazy game?
Well, I started in sales really young. I grew up in Wisconsin. And about the age of 12, I started in the modeling industry.
Okay.
So I worked with photographers and catalog houses like Kohl's and nothing super fancy, Montgomery Wards, like lens crafters, stuff like that. But from a very early age was going in almost by myself often and introducing myself to people and building relationships face to face, just learning about sales.
The difference between now and then, growing up and doing those things versus now.
I lived in Chicago at 16 by myself, like in an apartment. And just for a couple of weeks, I was offered to go to Italy, and I think they didn't want to do that. So they said, well, you could do this for a couple of weeks, and they let me do that. I was so eager. I carried my groceries by myself and figured out Chicago area.
Yeah.
So that was probably from like 12 to 18. I went to college, University of Wisconsin. Then after college, actually ended up being an agent at that same modeling agency in Chicago.
Okay,
for
very
a couple
cool.
years. Yeah. And then got out of that and went into publishing. So I sold advertising for many years at Crane's Chicago business. Their office was at Michigan and Wacker in downtown Chicago. So I worked with a lot of real estate brokers and developers. And then I also worked with a lot of Fortune 500 companies like UPS. Their ad agency is actually headquartered out of Richmond. So I'd fly down and see them. And Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then Trump Tower was advertising at that time. It was sort of a really unique time in the city of Chicago where it was being developed.
So now you're doing the sales side. You're going to give the pitch for the advertising to these groups. So what were some of the ways that you would get in front of them?
I joke with my broker a lot because when I was in sales then, the software I had was like a DOS system, CRM, right, and email. That was it. And the phone. And I just called people. I would call anyone else who was advertising and I would ask to meet with them in person.
Wow. Okay.
I'd do launches and do really nice presentations. I had an assistant who did presentations for me, and we were asking people to spend like $100,000 to maybe $500,000 with us. So it was convincing them with the statistics of who read our magazine, why it would be a good investment for their business.
I can imagine that's some pretty high pressure potential sales. Like what were some of like your favorite stories, or like what was your best account and how did you go about getting them?
My best account was Blue Cross Blue Shield. They were a faithful advertiser at the publication and did the back cover, which is more expensive. But I was able to bring the real estate side. That was not a side that the publication had. So I would say that was a big part of what I was able to accomplish there. It was also in the time right before the crash. So it was a lot of money happening in real estate. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I loved it.
Very cool. When you look back on it, what were some of the things that you really took from that job that you carried you forward into real estate?
Sales is all about relationships. It's also about having a bold confidence to ask for the business. Yeah. You have to be able to close business, but serving people at a high level and just really listening and being consistent. So I say Sales is about the boring, beautiful basics. It's like you just,
Right?
and right now it's like the world is like, oh, this is the easy way to do it. But it really is being impeccable with your word, and not just, impeccable to show up for your clients, but to show up for yourself. And what I mean by that is showing up. No business is a business unless you have lead generation. So however you choose to do your lead generation, you need to be doing that and time blocking that in a consistent way.
Yep. And we'll get into that, but I love what you just said there. So sales is the boring, beautiful basics. And it's funny because in real estate, loans, title, whoever, there are certain things that are just hallmarks of a sales professional. And these are the things that we do. And I think sometimes, like you said, we get lost in like the shiny widget's going to do it for you. And sometimes maybe it can, but it also goes in and out of favor of just the things that are part of the business. It's funny because I have been a loan officer 20 years next month. And I think back,
Sam.
well, thank you. And I think back to some of the widgets that came along that were revolutionary at the time. I laugh now thinking about them and probably where they're at in some landfill somewhere, but those are the big things. But the boring, beautiful basics is such an important point. When you were in the University of Wisconsin, was there like a sales degree you were going for, like advertising? What was your background for there?
So I studied marketing and international business.
Oh.
Spent a semester abroad in London and studied marketing. Yeah, I loved it there. That was a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. I hope my kids can both go overseas. But my parents were so trusting. I mean, my dad jokes that he just saw where I was by the credit card. I mean, this was before there was smartphones. So
no Life 360 back then, just another random chart. Got it.
No idea where I was. And I survived. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So you go from that. What then made you take the plunge to get your real estate license?
Well, I did have a season of raising kids at home. We had a daughter with some pretty complicated medical issues. After Chicago, we lived in Cleveland for a little bit, and we were highly connected with the Cleveland Clinic during that season. My husband's a pastor.
Okay.
So we moved to this area. We had the privilege of helping start a campus at our church here in Virginia Beach, Trinity Church.
Okay.
And when we came here, we had 3 campuses. Now we have 7. Yeah.
Wow.
So 2 international and 5 in Hampton Roads, 1 in Northern Virginia.
Very impressive. That's awesome.
We're the third campus. So we were like the one who rocked everything. Things changed a lot, but it was a huge privilege. We came here, taught in the schools for a little bit, because I thought maybe that God was going to use kind of the knowledge I learned from having a kid with special needs. That was just not a fit for me. I didn't feel like I could be creative and stuff like that. And so we were in a season where our church didn't have the greatest insurance. It's really great now, but it was part of the driver, and that my son got really sick, but God used this and we couldn't afford some of the healthcare. So I said, well, I got to make more money.
Yeah.
And I knew I was good at sales.
Did you always have a passion for real estate?
I had the background, and my brother's in commercial real estate. He's a developer in Madison and develops like mixed use buildings. And my dad invests with him. And then I just had a background in sales, and then with the connection to all the brokers that I worked with and developers. So I got my license and then just did networking with brokers and felt like the real estate group was the best fit for me.
Outstanding. Well, when we come back, I want to talk about that first year in business for you, because while you haven't been doing it very long, you are very good at it. So we'll be right back with Debbie Childs. Do you have clients considering new construction, looking for a builder that takes pride in their work and delivers a beautiful home? If so, I'm excited to tell you about Sona Homes located in Fredericksburg. If you haven't visited a new Sona home yet, reach out to my friend and sales manager, Adarsh Parbadia, at 540-419-3164. Adarsh will be able to answer all your questions about Sona Homes and make it a great experience for your clients. Again, that is Adarsh Parbadia with Sona Homes at 540-419-3164. Make sure you tell him Tanner sent you. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, Debbie, let's talk about doing the listings for the rentals. Phone calls for people like, hey, I want to rent 123 Main Street. And you're like, oh, okay. And let me see if these are potential people that are possible buyers. And then would you try to meet with them to convert them that way? Or you're like, hey, we're going to look at the rentals and then see how it goes.
So the property manager is pretty busy and they get so many calls on a rental. And then renters usually really need something. So they were just willing to give me their information and then I could follow up.
So that resulted in the one person who then decides to buy after the extensive search. Now, do you recommend for new agents that they do a warm party for the clients after it's closed?
I mean, I have certain clients who are super private and just would never want something like that. But you
Stoic.
can sort of tell if
Yeah.
they have a big family or this couple was moving from out of the area. And I said, hey, I'd love to help you guys get established and get to know your neighbors.
Nice. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
the housewarming party. Then how did you spread the word? Did you like knock on doors,
Yeah,
tell
so I
people?
did
Or?
the invites for them and printed them professionally and then asked them to send them out to their friends. And I said, I'll bring the food and you guys bring the drinks and whatever else. And then I brought some like just favors for people.
That's interesting. Now, was that like your very first closing that you'd had as far as like a purchase side, or you had a couple before that, or?
I had more before that. One of my great referral sources was my cleaning lady. She seems to know when everyone's moving. Then I also was at the grocery store one day and just knew I'd be so good at this. And I gave the gal who did my groceries, I asked her where she was living and she said she didn't like where she was living. I said, I can help you find a house. And I gave her my card and she bought a house.
Wow. Okay. I always ask about a bold move, and I think the bold moves are always interesting. So those are two right there that you took the chance. You're like, all right, I'm going to have this housewarming party. So you have to make sure it sounds like that you have the right client for it that would be open to it. And then you've had them mail out the different folks. And then the idea of like, hey, always be letting people know what you do. So I love that point where you gave that person a card and then they end up buying a house. What were some of the other things? Like in the beginning, did you have a mentor that was helping you on some of these ideas? Your marketing background, you're like, I'm going to do these things?
Well, my husband and I have several mentors, and we did meet with somebody early on. He's actually the lead pastor at our church, and he's a lawyer, author, and pastor. And we met with him. We were just like, we value you so much, and we feel like God's calling me to this. And how do you recommend we handle our business? So he said one of the main things that he told me was to be really generous with my business and to serve people. I'm a Bible girl, so my husband's pastor. In the Bible, this Hebrew word that's used for blood is used for money. And so when money is flowing through economies, it brings life and health to people. And it's a way to serve. But you see in an economy is like maybe like in South Korea, or maybe in relationships where money is really controlled, not good for people, right?
Interesting.
I think that money in business is a way for us to help people. I see it's such a privilege to walk with people when they're making a big decision about where their family's going to live.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And they let us in on so much. And we get to be steady. And sometimes they're going through difficult emotional, they're going through difficult relational things. And we just get to listen and care for them.
So it's the helper's heart, which is always a big deal. And one of the hallmarks of successful agents is the caring factor for sure. And then like the idea of like, I'm helping somebody. We talked about how you started rolling on that and then having the investor. If you were starting over today, you're brand new, what are some of the things that you would be doing maybe that you didn't do or that you would recommend new agents think to do?
So I think that I have a list of probably like 20 things that I look at and ways to connect with people. Sometimes handwriting notes, sometimes it's doing coffee or lunch, maybe sending people looking through the MLS and like, hey, this property reminded me of you. Social networking events. I do a client appreciation event. So door knocking. I do door knocking around my open houses or if I have a new listing. And I just love talking to people. You can show up and people really care about their home and their values. If I've sold a home in the neighborhood, I can stop by and say, look, I just want to let you know, we just closed. We've increased the value in this neighborhood. And people just love to chat.
They're not like, oh, I didn't want to know that the value of my house just went up 20
and
grand.
I don't feel like I'm selling them anything. I feel like I'm just providing value. I'm stopping by. And again, I think the goal is to get face to face. So door knocking's bolder, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but you can get face to face faster for door knocking.
So a lot of times new agents are working open houses, right? So it's like they're at the open house and maybe they didn't get a lot of foot traffic through, but maybe that follow up of like letting people know in the neighborhood, like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that we just closed on the 123 Main Street and it ended up going for this. Just thought you might want to know. So even though it wasn't their listing per se, you were at the open house, you're passing along the information. The person who is the listing agent probably is not going to tell anybody. So
anytime you do an open, I door knock ahead of that open.
Okay.
So I just say, hey, I'm having an open house and I know you live in a neighborhood and would love for you to stop by. And it's listed at this. Come see what they've done with the house.
Neighbors, you go like, all right, you guys can come from like 12 to 1. And then the open house is like 1 to 3. So whereas it's like, just come and we'll see you there.
No, because I feel like it benefits the seller the most to have as much foot traffic through that property.
Gotcha. So don't limit it. Just be like, hey, come on out.
No, just come on out. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when you do that, you met them and you're like, oh, hey, it's good to see you again as you are coming to the open house.
And if not, they may not come, but you still met somebody. Then if you choose to follow up with those people over time, nobody stays in their house forever.
Right? Not around here, no.
I mean, you're building a relationship with people. I've had people keep my flyers for a couple of years and call 'em.
Smart. Yep. So I think a lot of people that are listening are like, oh, I couldn't even think about doing the door knocking. Like, what is the intro? So it's like you knock on the door, they come to the door,
So-
they're going to be defensive. Should we start with they are in most cases going to be defensive?
I try not to let my mind go there. My
Okay.
mind can tell
All
us
right.
I've
So
had
we're going to go in
stupid
with the
things,
right attitude, right?
So I just come up and I have my flyer and I just say, hey, I'm Debbie Child. Give them the flyer. And I say, we're holding a house open down the street. Would love to invite you to stop by. I've had people tour me through their entire house.
Wow. Okay. So they're like, we want to see how ours stacks up in your opinion based on the other one. And then they're giving you the tour. Okay.
Have had people not be happy, but it has really nothing to do with me. I've caught them at a bad time.
Right.
And we've all gotten caught at bad times. Right. And so you just let that roll off your back. But I mean, I would say that maybe happens 1 in 100. Most people are super friendly.
For sure. And that's such a great attitude to go in with it and just letting them know. I love that idea. I mean, if you're going to do the open house anyway and you're going to be there, you might as well try to generate as much traffic as possible. And if you can get a listing out of it, even better. Or maybe they know the buyer coming in, right? And then you can help them. So
yeah, exactly.
So obviously door knocking's a helpful part, but what are some of the other things that you've done to have a successful open house? And if we're talking a successful open house, is like, how do we get people through?
Well, I do quite a bit of Facebook advertising. Open house advertising is not super successful, but I will post a video if I'm done an open about the house and, hey, I'm here at the open house. I think that lets your sphere know that you're still in real estate.
Right.
But I think it's also about being confident when people come in. You are there to serve them. I mean, also honoring broker relationships. And if someone does have a realtor, we of course honor that. But we sometimes are a little too close to the industry and a lot of people don't understand how it works.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I'm somewhat surprised often. I'll meet a buyer who's like, oh, I just thought I had to go on Zillow to get an agent.
No, here's my card.
They don't know. I mean, so I see our role as just being a guide and helping guide them through the process because there's a lot of different messages coming at people and we're here to help.
That's a really good point. I've forgotten sometimes too that like we do this for a living and maybe they bought a house before, maybe they didn't, maybe they've never had a family member buy a house before. So there's all these different factors in play. So if you start with the assumption of like, I'm going to educate this person to help them, and they probably really appreciate that because I've already watched 100 YouTube videos, but maybe they have some more questions that are not being addressed by what they're looking for in there.
And I tell them I'm in property every day. I'm closing a couple times a month. And I know most people buy real estate every 7 years, or maybe they're a first-time home buyer. So they don't understand the process as much as we do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, I always like to ask about a bold move, and you already gave me a couple, but do you have any others that you would like to share? And to me, it's like a bold move is something that you did to get a transaction and to help a client that if you hadn't made this effort, you wouldn't have got it. It didn't fall out of the sky. You made it fall out of the sky. So
I have a good story just from this past weekend. So I was out with a client, and this client had been renting for 19 years. 19 years, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
And the landlord came to her and said, you need to be out in 30 days. And so she had a very short period of time to find a home. And so we came in, we did a buyer strategy meeting, and then we went out in the field and we had selected 3 properties to see.
Okay.
So, and she's 80 and has some mobility issues. So we went into the first one and she's like, well, put a star next to this one. Drove up to the second one. And she was like, I'm not going inside. She's like, I'm not going in. And her whole family was with her. They all went in. They loved the house.
Okay.
And then her car breaks down. The battery dies.
Okay.
So I call a listing agent. I said, you know what? I think I may need to drive up on the grass. I don't know if it's okay with you to help jump her car. We tried to jump it. We couldn't. They had to get roadside assistance. So I turned to her and I said, you know what? This might be a sign you need to come in and see the house. She came in and saw the house and she bought the house. I sat on the floor, wrote the offer while we were waiting for roadside assistance, sat with her, went through the terms. So we had a meeting of the minds and we ratified this afternoon.
Oh, my goodness. Well, sometimes fate has other plans for something like, I'm not going to buy this one. So why was she so adamant? Like she didn't want to go in, but then once she got in, she was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect.
It's very common here in Hampton Roads for a garage to be finished off. She was like, it doesn't have a garage. But when she got in, she enjoyed the feel of the home. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, you know what? It helped that the car broke down. So that's for sure.
She needs a house. She needs a place to live.
Yeah.
And to ask her again, say, maybe we need to go in and see it.
That's a good point.
We don't always have to take people's no the first time.
I like that. Yeah.
Because we're the professionals seeing things from the outside and I'm not trying to push something on her. but also people are going through a lot of trauma and other things. For her to see the big picture, this actually was a really good house for her, and the layout was really good for her family. And so for her to go in and see it when she did, I think she was able to see that vision.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But sometimes we have to help people see that.
That's a great point. All right. When we come back, I want to talk about the pillars of business for you right now. So we'll be right back with Debbie Childs. Hey everybody, it's Tanner Mulvihill with Bayfield Home Loans. Well, 2023 is here, and if you haven't done so yet, it's time to take a good long look in the mirror and ask yourself an honest question. Is your loan officer helping you succeed? For example, are they bringing you new marketing ideas? Do they actively try to generate referrals from the clients you send to them? Or even better, are they sending you business? My philosophy is business should be a two-way street, and I do my best to make it that way. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please give me a call or shoot me a text to 540-850-6267. Let's get together for coffee. Once again, that number is 540-850-6267. Talk to you soon. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, Debbie, let's talk about the pillars of business for you right now. You've just crossed 4 years in the business. You are a platinum agent in the Hampton Roads area. What do your pillars look like? If I had a pie chart, where is this percentage of my business coming from this?
I do advertising, Facebook lead ads, and have a database through a Sierra website. And then I'm working on building like SEO type, Google organic type stuff. But I get leads through there of people that I basically advertise. I ask, would you like me to send you a list of homes? And we start there, and then I follow up with them. So I do use the technology, but I also send video right away so I can try and get face-to-face as soon as possible. Some of those people are local. Sometimes I'll stop by their house and say, hey, we connect on Facebook, and do a pop-by for them. But I work those leads, and then I do the Reminder Media magazine.
Let me go back to Facebook for a minute. It's like, how did you just figure out advertisement towards particular people you're looking for? And tell me some of like what you've seen since you've been doing that, as far as like, okay, first they respond this way, and then I do this, this, and this.
Yeah. So I was in an online sales division here.
Okay.
So enjoyed working those leads, but I did have to pay a split for it. So I decided to create my own and felt that was just a better business decision for me. So I first started working with a consultant, an advertising agency, and he was actually out of Amsterdam.
Oh, wow.
Specializes in this. So he gave me quite a bit of training in the area on Facebook ads. I think it's infinitely complex in the back end of Facebook. I think it's too complex.
That's been my experience. The whole like meta business and everything, I find it very confusing.
Way too complex, but there is a way to simplify it. So he helped me learn quite a bit about that. Okay. And then I was trying to simplify things this last year, and I've been working with another consultant on it. I think I may start doing it myself, but with those leads, Facebook leads, I'm finding now that people often are researching about a year ahead.
Interesting.
When they're looking to do something new. And Facebook leads are like that. Google organic leads are usually a little bit more
ready to buy.
Ready to buy. I use Loom, which is a video software. So I think it's great. I use it to review contracts with my clients and other things too. I'll say I'm doing a custom list of homes for you. Then I give them a little tour of my website via video, and it has who I am on there. And then I follow up just like you would with anyone else, right?
Yeah. When you look back on it, like, okay, I learned this from this experience and I was able to engage them through this method, and then just took it from there on other ones.
Each person's different and their needs are different. You connect with a lot of foreign clients, a lot of cash buyers online and investors. So they're usually pretty instant. And had a foreign client who we would use like Google Translate to talk, and he wasn't great with like authenticing and stuff like that. So I would just print out the contract before I went, and we would go to a showing and we would just sign the contract right there, like kind of old school. Well, just getting to know people and what their needs are.
Learning the game on Facebook is such a huge win for you to have that knowledge to be able to make it work, because it is generating leads. A lot of people have bad thoughts on leads, and I don't, because I'm able to work them too. But generating them in volume with Facebook is definitely a helpful tool.
There's people, right, who just need a home.
Yeah.
I just try not to make it.
That's the way to look at it.
I heard a statistic the other day that something like 50% of people don't have like a super close circle of friends. And so people may not have somebody that they know to connect with as a realtor. And so I'd like to be an option.
It's funny because it's like, there's those guys, and then there's the other 50% that know like 15 agents. So then they skew the numbers and they say that everybody knows 7 or whatever the numbers are.
Right.
So that's one pillar of your business right now. Tell me about another.
I have a sphere of influence that people who have done business with me are my close friends. And I do send out a magazine
Okay.
What's your reminder media?
So they're receiving the reminder media. We've closed the house or buy or sell, and now I'm making sure and staying in front of you with the reminder media magazine. So, which is
Yeah. And then I send monthly market reports too.
okay.
If you purchased, or on your home. So the values.
Now, is that through a proprietary system that you guys have, or is that through like HomeBot, or like how are they receiving that?
So I have my own website, debbiechilds.com, and it's through Sierra.
Okay.
They have a market report in there.
Are you currently working with a coach? What are your thoughts on coaching?
So I have like a life coach. I don't have like a business coach.
Okay.
I do have a life coach that helps me just with like my overall wellness and to just reach my potential in kind of all areas of life. I think as a woman, I can't see just work and personal life. Like I want it all to flourish and grow. Yeah. So she helps me with all those things.
I love that. And a lot of times too, the things that we're hearing from a mortgage coach or a real estate coach are going to be very similar. So incorporating a little bit of everything, because a lot of times too, the purpose of a coach is to give you confidence. And when you're doing some of the activities that you're doing, to have the confidence to knock on a door and engage with the person, I mean, that's a win. So
Right.
That's awesome. So right now we have the sphere of influence. Let's talk a little bit about what are you doing that you think is maybe a little bit unique or different that other agents aren't to make sure you're staying in front of them.
I am doing an event at the end of September, and I don't know if that's terribly different, but I do like the idea of building community and being with people and getting people together. And it gives me an opportunity to chat with my clients and see them again.
Yeah. What's been your favorite past client event that you've done?
I mean, I like the open house stuff, and I have done seller going away parties too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different.
It depends on the clients. This was like a family and large family, and they had lots of people over, and we brought like a Kona ice truck and just made it a lot of fun. But I like an intimate event. So we have done, our brokerage does some events, which are really great, but I do like to have my own intimate event.
Okay.
And so I'm looking forward to this one.
I have never heard anybody say the seller going away party. If you can have their friends and family there that potentially you can then meet again, whether it's next month they decide to list or a year and a half from now, that's such a great idea. And the seller's really going to appreciate it too. Like, wow, you took the extra step of doing that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And so that comes originally from my mentor who told me you have to look at ways to be generous. So with each transaction, I'm saying, how can I be generous with my business? I mean, yes, it does help my business, but it also helps them to end well and to send their family off.
How are you measuring your results right now? Do you track like monthly? Okay, here's the folks that I'm helping compared to like last year. How are you tracking your numbers right now to stay focused and stay on top of everything?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the past 2 years have been really great because business was coming at us. For me, there were some downsides to those years too, because I feel like some of the systems that I would have had in place weren't able to be there because it was like we were all driving down the expressway at 120 miles an hour.
Right. And you're like, stop playing on your phone over there trying to set up this system. Pay attention.
So, and now we're all going 60 and it's normal and it feels a little bit slower, but I'm grateful for it because I almost feel like I'm a second-year agent because those 2 years were really great and gave me a lot of good experience and I'm grateful for them, but they're not normal. I mean, we're calling them sort of the unicorn years. So now I feel like it's a really great time to be in real estate.
For sure, because you're laying the groundwork for the career now, right? It's like that was the flash in the pan. And yes, you were able to take advantage of it. And imagine if you had been in business 10 years and then that happened, like your sphere really connected with and helped. But you have to make sure you're building for that next time frame as well, because we run into these cycles where it's either lean or it's booming, and then you go on to the next one. So it doesn't just stay the same. It's never just going to be like every year 2% increases, right?
Right. Yeah. And markets don't make you. I mean, it's really, people still need houses in any market. It's just, are you, again, doing those boring, beautiful basics of
I love that.
Connecting with your people, regardless of what the market's doing. And I will say that when it was pretty crazy, it was harder to do the basics because we were all going so fast.
Especially in looking back on it too, because if you're writing an offer and there's 25 other offers going in, you don't know if you've won. Chances are maybe you didn't. So you're gearing up to go look at houses again. Or if you're the listing side, you're looking at 25 offers. So it's just, you don't have the time to really put the things in place that you want to. And I can understand that for sure. In this last segment, your pillars of business, do you have any other parting thoughts for agents out there listening? Some of the things like maybe you're working on now to make sure that they're going to be ready for the next cycle?
Yeah, I mean, I think this business is such a privilege. And there's relationships that you connect with in this business that I would not have otherwise.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for. And there's relationships that aren't just a transaction, but they're transformational. To look at everything as an opportunity like that you get to be able to guide somebody in this very important season of their life when their family's moving or a place they want their family to thrive.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're doing the hard work of downsizing. And to go at their pace and that their needs are above yours and to just really listen.
Yep. That's a big key. I always go back to the listening point, and I think a lot of people that come into the business who have that background succeed because you need to hear what the client is saying. And I always tell the story that I remember I was where the agent had the clients in the room and clients were telling the agent what they were looking for. And it sounded like, oh, we've lived on base our whole life. We're looking for the white picket fence experience of the sidewalks and all that. And he kept telling them about townhouses. That's not what they're looking for. And he kept trying to sell them townhouses and he ended up losing them as clients. And it was because he wasn't listening to what they were saying. And it's important.
And sometimes for that client, maybe they can't afford the white picket fence thing.
Right.
So then putting their needs above yours and saying, look, if that's what you guys want, we need to make a plan for you guys to do this next year. How can we make this work?
That's a good point. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to finish this up with some great stories. And I want to talk a little bit more about how you're staying in front of your past clients now. So we'll be right back with Debbie Childs.
Tanner Mulvihill, NMLS number 276814.
Well, welcome back, everyone. All right, Debbie. So we're going to talk about just some final thoughts on the podcast for newer agents out there. We've really talked about listening for what your clients are saying. We've talked about making sure you have a helpful heart. We've talked about making sure you go in with the right attitude to find the business, whether it's door knocking, open houses, ways that you can connect with clients after, during, etc. Do you have any final thoughts for newer agents, what they should be doing right now?
I think just do the things that you know work. So, and do them consistently over time. And it just takes what it takes. And it does take anyone who's going to have a successful business has to connect, talk to people they don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so if that's open houses, if that's door knocking, if that's sending out unsolicited CMEs, if that's events, I mean, however you want to do that, you need to do that consistently.
Talk to people you don't know. That's a great point. So you're out in the store, they mention something that kind of cues something for you, and then you're able to say, hey, well, I'm a real estate agent. I can help you purchase a house. And then next thing you're helping to purchase a house. So I love that idea of just talk to people you don't know. Well, we're to my favorite part of my podcast here. So I love stories from agents because loan officers' lives are not particularly like eventful on the loans. It's never like, oh my gosh, they were in a 30-year and then they decided to go to a 25. And minds were blown everywhere. It's like, no, that's not how that went. But agents have great stories. So here's my question. Do you have a funny or scary story to share about either a showing, a transaction, a closing, any event in the real estate field that you will be telling many years down the road as your favorite real estate story?
Oh, wow. Some come to mind. But I was just out the other day and we were looking at a house and we opened up the door and around the door was, I mean, I think like 250 cockroaches.
Oh, my
tiny
goodness.
Ones.
Okay, so set the stage here. So what's our price point in the Hampton Roads area?
This is a first-time homebuyer and they're like up to 215.
Okay, 215.
Okay.
So we're, and for the agents listening across the state, that's actually doable here in the Hampton Roads area. So that's one of the nice things about the market is that you can help on these different ends. So we're looking at this house, 215.
And the seller's there. And we open up and the buyer and I run. We just like run. And then the buyer says, you can be my agent forever because you ran with me away from the cockroaches because we were so terrified. And then the seller kind of was like on a bit of Looney Tunes or something like that. She's like, there's no problems here. No problems here. And just like spraying. And she's like spraying with the Raid. There's a problem.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So you go up to the door, you're opening the door and you start noticing the door frame is like moving. Is that?
Yeah. I mean, just hundreds of tiny cockroaches. And the seller said that it must have been because they just freshly painted the house.
Oh, that was no doubt. Like
that must have been it.
With what? Cockroach food? Like what?
Yeah, it just comes out from fresh paint. I was like, no.
Wow. Good luck selling that house. Might want to drop a few.
It's still on the market. Yeah.
I think so. But the cockroaches will stay. Oh, so the client appreciated that you quickly ran away from this cockroach.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
Together.
Well, that's a pretty good story. And yes, a little alarming when you open the door or trying to open the door and then the seller being there. That's always another red flag too. Yeah. So, well, that's awesome. Well, Debbie, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. I love the stories and you gave me a lot to think about. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for the privilege of inviting me. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I hope we can do some business together.
Me too. We'll have more great stories.
Yes. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Deborah. Well, that's it for this episode of the Virginia is for Realtors podcast. If you're a realtor looking for a loan officer you can count on to follow up with the leads you send, keep you updated on the transaction every step of the way, and get you to the closing table on time, give me a call. I'd love the opportunity to sit down with you for coffee to learn more about your business and how we can make it even better. Until next time, this is Tanner Mulvihill on the Virginia is for Realtors podcast.